Hello! Today I'm excited to share another 2-page scrapbook layout featuring the Autumn to Remember paper collection from Stampin' Up. In this video, I'll be creating some custom ephemera using basic items that most paper crafters have on hand. I've already used this collection for a few layouts, and I'll link those process videos below for you to check them out. For this layout, I have a fun idea in mind. I'll be working with these 2 pattern papers since I have plans for the others, so I'll set them aside for now. As part of my challenge to use items from my stash, I'll also be incorporating a pattern paper from Simple Stories that I have had for years. This paper will add some vibrant color to the layout, coordinating nicely with my theme. I'll be pulling stickers from the sticker sheet, although there aren't many left. Plus, I'm excited to show you how to use Wink of Stella to add some fun sparkle to your pages. I'm also including items from a paper pumpkin kit I've had for a while. These stamps are perfect for my photos I'm documenting. At the end of the video, I'll share some projects I've created using that kit. Let's dive into the pictures I'm featuring today. These pictures are of my sister and I at a pumpkin patch not far from home. I have 4 photos I'm going to put on this double page spread. This oval, die cut, and punch are a few of the tools I'll be working with today. Again, for this layout, I'll be following a sketch I found on Pinterest. It was designed by Tanya Roberts from Scraptastic Creation. It reminds me of a patchwork quilt. I'm starting with some basic white cardstock as my base for the layout. Here is a look at the papers I'm using. I'll be cutting each one into 2 by 2 inch squares. To add some dimension, I'm inking the edges with Pecan Pie using my sponge dauber, which is one of the coordinating colors in the kit. I've completed 1 square on camera, but I'll finish the rest off screen. Along with the pattern papers, I'm using Pecan Pie Cajun Craze cardstock from Stampin' Up, as well as a lovely teal cardstock from my stash, and a few random leftover pattern papers from the same Simple Stories collection. I'm starting on the left-hand side of my layout by placing my first row of squares to determine how the rest will fit in. I did speed this process up quite a bit, but as I build my patchwork quilt design, I'm being mindful not to position the same papers next to each other and paying attention to the direction in which they are oriented. This way I can create a visual appealing arrangement. Now that I have determined my paper placement, I'll bring back my photos to see what's going on and what it'll look like. I print my photos at home using my Canon photo printer. Including the white border, these pictures measure 4 by 4, 4 by 4.5, and 3 by 4. I've already cut some matting for my photos using 3 colors: Mossy, Meadow, Pumpkin Pie, and Early Espresso. Normally, I try not to place like photos next to each other, but in this case, I felt it was okay because the pumpkins were different colors, and I wanted to create a little nook beside my photo here for my journaling. With the quilt layout in place, I'm going to adhere the squares using my Easy Tape Runner. I'll also use a pencil to lightly mark where my pictures will go. All my squares are now attached and I've trimmed off the excess. Off screen, I worked on the right-hand side of my layout and marked where the focal photo will sit with a pencil. This is what it looks like in a side-by-side view. This is my Wink of Stella pen. It is brand new, still in the package. If you haven't used one before, let me show you how to activate it. Do you see that black spacer in the middle of the pen? That's just for shipping. To use the pen, you'll need to remove that black piece. Feel free to recycle it or throw it out, whatever you want to do. After that, screw the pen back together and it's ready to go. I'd like to give mine a little shake. Keep in mind you only want to do that after it's been activated with the lid on. I'll grab a scrap piece of paper here. So there's a spot on the side that says push. Carefully push that and you should see the liquid moving slowly to the tip. Looks like I squeezed a bit too much. Look at that shimmery goodness. Like I said, I want to add some shimmer to my layout, and I want to do it in orange. I'll take my pumpkin pie ink pad and give it a little squeeze to get some ink on the top. Now I'll use some scrap paper and mask off the areas where I don't want splatters. I'll pick up some ink with my Wink of Stella brush, and using my bone folder in my other hand, I'm going to tap on the pen to create beautiful splatters all over. I'll pick up a bit more ink and tap, tap. I'll move the scrap paper to get to the other side and tap again. Here's a close-up. It's even more vibrant in person than it is on camera. I'll repeat the process to the other side of the layout. I love how this splatter elevates the design and adds a fun, playful, energetic touch to my layout. Once we're done using the brush, we want to make sure that we clean our Wink of Stella very well. To clean it, just run the brush or swipe the brush back and forth onto a piece of scrap paper. It is also recommended to store your Wink of Stella on its side instead of upright. Let me clean up my space here quick. Now let's see how it all comes together. Here I'm showing you that I did gut the middle of the bottom 2 layers of cardstock on this mat. I'm going to attach my pictures to the layout so then we can get started on the fun part. I'm using the sticker "Enjoying the Last Days of Summer" as my title. It's perfect since my pictures were taken at the end of August. This one says "Happy Days." I'd like to use that too. Then this one reads "Story of the Day." So I think that's a good one. Let's get started on the ephemera for this layout. I'm using my oval paper punch along with the smallest oval die from my stitched shape set. While this set is no longer available, any oval shape will work for this project. If you have a cutting machine, cut out 5 ovals of the same size from cardstock or pattern paper. I will cut several ovals from coordinating cardstock off camera. The great thing about Stampin' Up's new 2-tone cardstock is I can utilize both the light and the dark sides. To add some shadow and definition, I'll ink the edges of all the shapes I cut using Pecan pie ink. I'll speed up this process since you've probably guessed by now, I'm making pumpkins. For the stems, I found an embossing folder in my stash that works well for adding texture. It embosses the most beautiful textured tree trunks. I thought it would be perfect. Check out what you have in your stash and see what would work for you. I'll cut tiny pieces to create stems using early espresso cardstock. Other supplies I'll be using include dimensional foam dots, a tape runner, and washi tape. I'll start with the second layer, slightly overlapping the 2 ovals and securing them together with a piece of washi tape to create the pumpkin base. Then I'll attach the top piece using foam dots to add some dimension. Next, I'll take another oval and tuck it behind the base, leaving less than half of it showing on either side. Again, I'll use washi tape to attach this piece to the back. Or maybe not. I think tape runner is going to be easier. Okay, moving on. I'll attach the leaves I found in my paper pumpkin kit and the stem to the back of each pumpkin using my Tombow liquid glue. It's a good choice for this project and it's really easy to use. Look at how cute those are. Let's build one more together following the same steps, but I'll finish the rest off camera. So these pictures were taken at the end of August in 2021. This was the first time my sister and I visited the pumpkin patch, and we were excited to walk around and look at all the different varieties of pumpkins growing there. We both bought way too many pumpkins. But the good news is we did plan to get together for a whole day of pumpkin pie making just before Thanksgiving. In Canada, we celebrate our holiday in October. So now we just need to attach a leaf and a stem, and we have another one built, just like that. For this pumpkin, I thought it would be cute to tuck the leaf in the front of it instead of in behind. So there you go. 2 little pumpkin ephemera. Ta-da! All my pumpkins are now complete and in place. I love how they turned out. And so easy to make, right? As you can see, I have my title in place, and this is where I'm putting my journal. Another item I found in my stash is this cardstock notebook I think paper. This should fit perfectly and help balance out the white from the other side of the layout. So I have a white pumpkin on the left side and now a white journaling spot on the right. I do have an extra green pumpkin here, and let's just set it aside for now. I want to add more pumpkin embellishments to my layout. I have this stamp from the paper pumpkin kit that I plan to use. Off camera, I stamped the image onto white cardstock using my Memento jet black ink, and I let it dry for a little bit. Now I'll move my layout aside and focus on coloring my stamped image. I'm using Stampin' Up watercolor pencils in Pumpkin Pie, Old Olive, and Early Espresso. The artist who designed this beautiful stamp included plenty of shading lines on the pumpkin, so I'll follow these lines with my pencil. To blend the colors, I'll use my Stampin' Up blender pen. Since the pumpkins are round, I'll blend the color following the curve of the pumpkin, working one section at a time. This technique will create a darker shade on the edges and gradually lighten towards the center, leaving a nice white highlight. When using blender pens, it's a good idea to clean the tip after every color change and every use. Now I'll fussy cut out the image. I'm going to cut off the curly Q on the stamped image because I have another idea for that. I'm cutting quite close to my stamped image because I don't want a lot of white showing. I completed several more stamped images of pumpkins off camera. For now, I'll place them in my embellishment clusters and decide exactly where they're going to go throughout the process. On the sketch, there are 2 tags here behind the focal photo. I did have these 2 scraps left from a previous project, but I also have this one left over from the workshop kit. I'm going to use the orange tag instead. That way I'm repeating the same color throughout my embellishment clusters. I love these wood paperboard pieces. They add so much interest to the layout without adding a lot of bulk. I could use this wreath and these curly Qs I can tuck behind some of my pumpkins. Although I have a few embellishments left, I do feel like that's all I can include for now. Now let's dress up the tags. I'm going to add this sentiment story of the day to repeat the Cajun Craze color into this area. I'll use foam dimensionals to attach it in front of the tags, making it the perfect spot to tuck a little heart under. I'm searching for the perfect spot for the sentiment Happy Days. I'll place it here for now, but it doesn't quite feel right. I do want to make sure that I repeat the green color on this side as well. I also have a few more embellishments from the paper pumpkin kit to add, including some extra pumpkins. Additionally, I'd like to incorporate the petal pink color that's in the center of the orange tag. As we enter the final stages of embellishing, I plan to work on one side of the layout at a time. Starting on the left side, I already have my tags in place. I used foam dots to pop up the sentiment in front of the tag, and I'm really liking the way that this is looking. Let's move on to the title area. I like the placement of the title slightly overlapping my picture, making a nice little shelf to house my pumpkins. Let's get these pumpkins into place. I'll add dimensional foam to the smaller pumpkin so it doesn't get lost next to my 2 bigger ones. I'm adding the faux wood paperboard curly Qs behind the orange pumpkin And I also found a curly Q from the Paper Pumpkin kit in Mossy Meadow. To carry over the Cajun Craze color, I found this doily again from the Paper Pumpkin kit to place over here. I just put a bit of the adhesive behind the paper to keep my page from sliding around. You only see a small bit of the doily, so I'll cut it in half and save the other piece for another project. This is super cute. I'm using the banner element to add a petal pink color to this cluster. Normally, this is something you would use to stamp a sentiment on for a card or something like that. But today, I thought it would look great, cut in half and tucked behind my pumpkin. To help it stand out against the pattern papers, I'll add a bit of inking around the edges. Oops, I don't need that other stuff. Have I mentioned before I'm a messy crafter? I'm getting better, but I like to keep everything I'm working with close by, and it tends to get crowded and spills over into my work area. While I had the ink out, I just thought I would add a little bit around this pumpkin. It'll kind of camouflage any of the white that's still left from cutting it out. I'm really happy with the placement of this cluster, so I'll attach it all to my page using my tape runner. And for any of my faux wooden elements, I'm using my Barely Art glue with the precision tip. I absolutely love this glue. My tags are looking kind of bare, so I'll add some ribbon from my stash. This is from Stampin Up. The ribbon color is Old Olive and it has a silver border on it. This particular ribbon is currently not available. It's the perfect size for this orange tag. Also, I will be using baker's twine in crumb cake for my other tag. This twine is available at the time of filming and comes in a 5-pack with additional colors. I'm just cutting off a small piece and I'll wrap it around the tag, weaving it through the hole and then again through itself. And I'll snip up any of the long bits. Apparently I am all thumbs today, but eventually I will get this through and sitting where it's supposed to be sitting. There we go. To attach the ribbon, I'm using thin double-sided tape from my stash. Glue dots would work well too, but this is what I have on hand. I'll put a strip on the underside of the ribbon and attach it like so, again cutting off any of the extra ribbon that's too long. I'm really happy with how this side of my layout is looking so far. Time to work on my right side of the layout now. Remember, I still have this green pumpkin that I'd like to use and the faux wood wreath to repeat like elements on this side of the layout. The right hand side of the page was looking a little off balance. I feel like there was just too much orange on this side. So I'm going to replace the orange pumpkin with this green one and I'll tuck half of the wreath behind it. Yep, I'm really kind of liking that. Again, from the Paper Pumpkin kit, I will add the pink petal color to this area. I used the same banner element from the left side, but this time I stamped Hello Pumpkin on it. And I'll place it right on top of this Cajun Craze pumpkin. Moving over to my journaling spot, I like all the pumpkins sitting here. I have the other half of the doily I'm going to tuck behind here to carry over some of the same colors throughout the page. My journaling spot needs to stand out a bit more, so I'll add a bit of pecan pie ink on all the edges. I have some ink left on my sponge, so I'll just use that. I'll attach it in place and I'll write my journaling on it in a bit. I have this awkward spot at the bottom of the picture here, so I think if I move the little pumpkin over here, that fits in this spot nicely. I still want to use the sentiment Happy Days, but it's just not working for me. I actually think it's too big. Moving on, I'll attach this all down, adding some additional curly cues to the lower pumpkins, but I still feel like something is missing from my clusters. I fuss around quite a bit with elements, moving them from here to here, adding more pumpkins I find from the Paper Pumpkin kit. I'm also looking at the stickers from the sticker sheet, and I do like this sticker that reads, "You are amazing." I think my sister is amazing, so why not? I'll dovetail the one end and place it with this pumpkin here. Of course, I'll be inking the edges first. I did place a foam dot behind it to help pop it off the page. It looks good, but I still think it's not quite right. I'm going to bring back the right-hand side of my page into view. Sometimes it's helpful to walk away and push your project aside and come back to it with fresh eyes. I'm really happy with this side of my layout, but I do have this other half of my wreath, and maybe I can add it to this side. Let's see, maybe around my tags. I like that. Maybe with this pumpkin. Nope, just the wreath. Okay, I'll attach that with my Barely Art glue, and I really like that. While I was thinking about the cluster on my right-hand side of the layout, I worked on my journaling. I made a tab with one of my die cuts from my stash to write the date on. Now this feels like one continuous cluster instead of two small ones. I think that's what it needed. I found these silver gems, and I believe they were left over from a different paper pumpkin kit. I will list similar items in the description box if you're interested in checking them out. I wanted to add more silver to my layout to repeat the silver edging on the ribbon I used on the orange tag. Unfortunately, mine are not adhesive back like the ones that are available now. So I'll place them where I want them to go and come back through with my adhesive. I like to place my gems in groupings of 3 in a triangle shape around my clusters. While I'm working on this, I will read to you what I wrote in my journaling spot. It says, "On this beautiful day in August, Diane and I visited Violet's greenhouse to explore the pumpkin patch. We had a great time discovering varieties of pumpkins. We ended up bringing home quite a few. Thankfully, we like making pie. It was the perfect way to enjoy the last days of summer." Here is a close-up of how they look. I'll add a few gems to the right-hand side, but only use them around the title cluster. Again, using my Barely Art glue to attach them to the page. I know I said I usually add only 3 to a cluster. Well, this time I used 5. So here's a close-up. As you can see, I did end up adding a few more small pumpkin die cuts from the paper pumpkin kit around this title cluster. Now I'll bring both pages into view. I'm thrilled with how this layout turned out. I love the pop of teal. Feel like it adds so much interest. Because I only used a little bit here and there, it helps your eye travel around the page, but it doesn't take over. Let's not forget about all the splatters. I know it is hard to see it on camera, but I love the subtle interest it brings to the page. As promised, I'd like to share some projects I created using the remaining items from the paper pumpkin kit. This kit included enough materials to make 20 cracker boxes. Here is how they turned out. The paper is double-sided, allowing you to choose between 2 patterns for each box. I also crafted a few with a flat bottom to create more of like a gift bag. Additionally, I made some cards. For one card, I used the extra orange pumpkin from my layout, along with items from the kit. I added a small flower stamp with first and second generation technique for the background. Then I created a banner from the scraps left over from the cracker boxes. The kit also included many small flower die cuts, which I arranged into a circle to assemble a wreath. I used the stamp from my stash that reads, "I'm so lucky to call you friend." And lastly, I featured the spooky black cat, stamping faces in the background with black ink. I added the doilies behind the cat and used the same pumpkin from the banner card. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope this project inspired you to work on your own scrapbook pages. Leave me a comment below. Tell me about your projects you are working on. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you gave it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Please watch for more of my YouTube videos coming real soon. If you didn't catch my previous process video, you can find that right here. Until next time, happy crafting.